So welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I am here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, functional nutrition and supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually live all over the world. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting-edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives who want to take their health to the next level. He's worked with athletes and celebrities all around the world, and it's going to kick us off with those clinical insights from your day today.
All right. So the first one that I want to share with everyone is a 55-year-old female. And this is interesting. She has the reverse effect with many herbs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
This is pretty common. So this shows up in clinic, and a lot of clinicians that are listening to this, listen close, because this comes up a lot when I'm out teaching, et cetera. So for example, maybe I give them kava, which is phenomenal for like muscle relaxation. It's, literally works better than Xanax for anxiety and stuff like that. So I give kava a lot in the office. And this particular scenario, I gave her kava and ashwagandha forte. Those are two phenomenal. That protocol right there is just phenomenal for anxiousness and anxiety. Anyways, I give her that, and it's really safe and effective. I would say it's almost always a home run. And then we have a situation like this. So she came back today and says, you know what? Typical me, this is how she says, typical me. I took those things that you gave me and they actually kept me up all night.
Wow.
So in lieu of that, of course, I have to ask the questions like, could have been anything else? It possibly could have. She only tried it one time. Okay. Yet. It did remind me, we had a conversation. I said, okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up with me. Let's navigate through that. How could something that literally works as something like kava, it takes the body out of that sympathetic dominance where, we're built up in stress and relaxes the body. It works very much like a muscle relaxer, which is wonderful. And that's how it kind of helps us kind of wind down and then, sleep, or if you have some anxiousness built up, it's really wonderful for that. So I told her there's really a couple reasons, and that we want to explore why this is happening for her. If I give her two different herbs, that both of them should give her a calming effect. Even though she only tried, I think the way she explains to me, she only tried the one. Anyways, so this happens when someone has something what we call being switched. So all the practitioners out there that are kinesiology and muscle testers, they understand exactly what I'm talking about. For the average layperson, they do not. So I want to give an understanding of what that means and how it happens. So if that happens to you, if someone says, oh, try this herb, this helps me fall asleep, and for you, it winds you up. Often that means that something has disrupted the way that your body is communicating through your endocrine system or your hormones. And when you're getting foods or medications or herbs in this scenario, that your body kind of interprets them differently. Your body receives them. It sends a message to your hypothalamus gland. And your hypothalamus gland, instead of being all calm and relaxed, gets excited.
Okay.
And there's really three primary causes that cause this situation to happen. And I've seen people do it all the time, and we can correct it. Number one is if you've ever been under anesthesia, and this could have happened at any time in your life. Ever. Wow.
Okay.
So listen,
a lot of people, most people maybe.
Yeah, most people, right? So, and it doesn't mean it's always going to happen this, but let's just step back for a second and think about anesthesia. We think of it as no big deal. It is one of the most dangerous procedures in medical, in the,
and just the general anesthetic, or are you talking about even like local anesthetic?
Not local, like general anesthetic. Like you go under.
I'm out cold.
You're like out. And just we have to think about that. Even if you Googled it right now, they don't actually know exactly what's happening. That's what's fascinating. Yeah. Crazy. So anyways, so we have to take just kind of step back for a moment and go, well, what do we know that's happening? We do know that somehow we can shut down the mind-body connection, and it can stick a knife in you, cut many things, cut things out of you, seal them back up, and you don't know better or worse.
Yeah.
You sleep through the whole thing. So we know that there has to be a massive disconnect. Yet when we kind of wake up out of it, there's never a system that reconnects it. So typically in clinic, what myself and a lot of the other clinicians will do, we help re-regulate the hypothalamus gland. And we use that through certain supplements. So this girl was wide open to it because she wants help. She wants to be able to sleep and whatnot, and not just blowing it off. She wants these herbs to be able to work for her too. And when I said it, and then, so that's number one, anesthesia. Antibiotics can interrupt the rhythm as well.
Okay.
And then drugs and medications. Well, so drugs and medications, let's just throw that in with the anesthesia, kind of like that, the disruption. And the third is massive emotional trauma, when we've been traumatized.
Switch how herbs work for you.
Yeah, literally flip.
Wow.
And so instead of being calming, they can be excitatory.
Wow.
So enough of us, if you've been practicing long enough, you'll come every now and then into a case of like, oh, I can't take valerian. Even though that's something that helps people sleep, it's in the research and everything like that, and say, oh, I can't do it. As a clinician, we think, nah, that's interesting. Wow. You have to kind of get to the root cause. Why is it? It's not because, it's not because, valerian's not good for us. Or didn't, it's not an effective herb. It's because that individual has some challenges. Anyways, all right. So that's one of the things that we have to just kind of pay attention to. If you find yourself having an adverse effect to it, don't just bail out on those herbs. Don't say they work for you. Kind of scratch your head and say, why would I have a reverse effect?
Yeah.
That and correctable here. That's the best thing, Karen. Very correctable. Just, I'm not going to say it. I see it all the time. I've seen it enough times and had enough really good teachers in the past. This is when you come across this, don't run away from it. Don't pivot. Just understand that you got to get to the root cause of why the body is switched. And muscle testers, those are the clinicians that are listening here today, they'll understand it because they muscle test, and there's a spot that they muscle test to find out if their polarity, the electrical system, is working the right way. And when they're supposed to be strong, they go weak. It's fascinating.
Wow. And that's I would never have thought that. Like if I had a herb that didn't work for me, I would just think that, I don't know, I was different and that herb just doesn't work for me. Like I would never think to look at why the herb doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it is important that we look at the why. And then also there's going to be a one-off always, meaning that every now and then this one thing doesn't work for you. Yet the way that this girl started that conversation, she's just typical me.
It was like a switch.
Yes, it worked the opposite. So that's if you're out there and that's you, just know that very fixable. That means that there was a disruption, most likely by anesthesia. That's when I see it the most. Yeah. Second would be antibiotics can often do it, just completely disrupt because it disrupts the microbiome, which is the gut-brain connection. And then of course, emotional trauma. Wow. All right. So that would be our clinical insight number one. And I expect that is going to go in a good direction. So we did some acupuncture in this scenario. And which is really cool because we can reset some things there and get some of the meridians to flow again, get the chi flowing again. And then we'll also the other part of that is this: don't give up on those herbs. The other part, Karen, let's just say that they just didn't work for you. Maybe they're stimulatory. You got a low dose and reintroduce it slowly but surely. Your body may very desperately need the very action of that herb, but because you're so depleted in that capacity, it actually created a reverse effect.
Yeah. Okay.
So what we did, we didn't stop the herbs with her. I took her dosing down to literally like she's only taking 1/2 of 1 kava, but we're going to introduce it to her system every single day.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there's some really cool strategies there. All right. We'll dive into the next one. This one, 67-year-old female. She got a new job, but she got a new job because she's retired and she wanted something to do. Okay. And her job, requires a lot more sitting. And after a couple, I don't know the whole time frame here. I think it's short period. I think it's less than 2 months period of time. Her blood pressure went up.
And just from sitting. Wow.
Yeah. This is interesting. Wow. I first thought, well, this would be from stress. So a couple things happened. So she did start sitting a lot. And then, so what happened was we just kind of had a nice conversation about it. So, well, let's review this. And of course I went right to the stress thing. Is it a stressful job? She's like, no, I love the people I work with. It's a really easy job. I don't even know what she does, but she said it was really easy.
She enjoys it. She actually enjoys
going
there.
I said, well, what else do you think is changing? Because the other part of this too, her blood pressure went up, but she's in a lot of pain now.
Oh,
Yes. So here are the things that change. So then we just reverse engineer. So what has changed? And the biggest thing that changed has been her walking. So this happened a little while ago. So I said, all right, this is real simple. You got to get back to walking. She's like, well, then I can't sit. So it was really, sitting is like the new smoking.
yeah.
And if you are a little bit older, you don't have time to sit. We've been doing it too much through the course of our lives. So this was such an obvious thing. And then as we dug deeper, and the biggest thing that changed for her, she stopped walking. That was what she did to fulfill her time. And then she stopped, essentially her exercise was walking. And instead of walking, she now sat. And as a result of it, her blood pressure went up and her whole body was in pain, like just everything was in pain. So she quit her job, went back to working. And I saw her today. She went back to working, and I asked
back to walking from working.
Back to walking.
From working. Yeah.
Blood pressure is fine and no pain in her body.
What?
Yeah. So the reason I'm bringing this up is I've come to this show a million times over and say how we move, eat, and think. If you don't move, eat, and lose it. You don't move it. This was a classic example of how moving and exercise, it is part of a requirement to be a healthy human being.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh man. And so many of us sit for 11 hours a day, sit in the car on the way to work, sit all day at the computer, sit all the way back.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it made me think as a clinician, how many other people are sitting at their desk with high blood pressure that maybe if they just started walking or just started exercising, and I know the answer to that question, many of them that have high blood pressure, that have pain in their joints because they're not moving.
Yeah.
And, I have this opportunity where at our studio, my wife teaches a yoga teacher training program.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're doing this like advanced course right now. It's like the 500 hours. So they're pretty, they're good teachers. They've been teaching for a while and their education's up there a little bit. So in this program, I teach them a little bit more about neurology, at least in our program we do. So there's some smart yoga instructors out there. Yeah. And the last time we got together, we talked about how the pain pathway really works, and being stationary enhances the opportunity for pain. And this is neurological. So it's really the moment you start moving, you significantly reduce the opportunity for pain to even be in your body.
Yeah.
So there's so many reasons. That whole, the whole idea of getting to move to lose it. It is real. And this young lady is 67 years old, which is another classic case of just she literally lived it. She had the opportunity to be retired and alive. She was doing a lot of walking. She wanted the job more of just something to do and connect with people every day, and immediately started to see decreased health.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Oh, well done for her for making the change back, for being open enough to be
So now the funny thing was we're what's the next job going to be? I asked her if she's going to be like a doorman or a bouncer or something.
Yeah. I know she needs an active job, right?
Yes. Wow. And she'll find something where she'll appreciate her health so much.
Yeah.
And that would be an okay thing too, to say that this is so important to me that I don't know no matter what the other benefit is, I don't want to give up my health. All right. So the next one, kind of an interesting one too. And again, kind of a, maybe I'm sharing this because it's almost a lesson in don't look for the short way out.
Really?
Put the work in.
No.
Yeah. So this is the one that's coming up now. So 45-year-old male, I've been seeing his wife as a client and his daughter for a couple of years now. They're really into their health groove. I see him as for the musculoskeletal conditions, chiropractic, acupuncture, but I also see him a virtual client, and we do a lot of nutrition and lab work and all that fun stuff. So they're really leveling up their health. And she would always say, "I'm trying to get my husband here, and he's dealing with plantar fasciitis."
Okay. And for those of you who don't know who it is, what is it? What is that?
Plantar fasciitis is, so plantar kind of means the surface, and fasciitis means the fascia is like the outer layer underneath the skin. There's fascia, and there's one piece of fascia that covers the entire body. So plantar fasciitis means the bottom surface of your foot, the fascia is inflamed. So they label it as plantar fasciitis, but it can be really, really painful. If you've ever had it before,
yeah.
The most classic sign that you have it is you wake up in the morning, put your feet on the ground, and it hurts. Like it hurts just to walk. Yeah, it hurts big time. Enough where you limp. And then the other classic sign is like the more you use it, like during the course of the day, it kind of gets a little better, then it gets worse again at night. So he has this, and she keeps saying, you got to come here. She asked me, do you deal with it? I said, yeah, all the time, especially with working with athletes and everything. There's there's really three things you do. You make sure that individual, this is one of the most important things. And this is fascinating in this case. That individual who has plantar fasciitis most likely has a deficiency of essential fatty acids. Essential fatty acids, another way of saying, are fish oils. And what happens is wherever you put a lot of your weight, your feet, you literally deplete the amount of fatty acids in there. You squish them out of the way. And they're farthest from the heart, so your feet kind of get the least amount of nutrients if you're not careful. So that is a big part of plantar fasciitis, is someone that has a deficiency of fatty acids. So anyways, he took the route of, I'm just going to go to the doctor, maybe give me a shot or whatever. And they do all these things. They give them a shot, and it temporary works, which always makes it worse down the road, because now you have a puncture into the fascia of the bottom of the foot. It's supposed to be very strong. Once you puncture it, you're going to create a little bit of a scar tissue there. So that's strike number one. They put them in a boot, which is fascinating to me when people are like, this is a good idea. They put your foot in a boot, and they basically says, here's how we're going to make it better. You can't use it anymore.
And for how long is that meant to be a thing? Like how long?
It was for like 6.5, 7 weeks or something like that.
In the boot.
And then he had to do rehab, which is the crazy thing, because your foot's been in a boot for so long, and now your calf is all literally over the years, to watch how fast the calf, if you don't get to flex your foot, will literally atrophy. And then once your calf atrophies, now we got a real issue. The calf and the Achilles and your foot are stabilizing the rest of the human body. So anyways, he goes through all these things because he really didn't want to come into me, because he knew that I would probably give him like an exercise or a stretch or something like that. I'm making that up. I have no idea why he didn't come see me. Finally comes and sees me. One visit, I tell him, all right, I'm going to give you 2 things to take, and then I'm going to do some of the rest, and I'm going to give you simple exercise at home. He's like, all right, because I knew he was kind of like, he told his wife he doesn't want to like have to change his diet and all that thing. So I did tell him that I wanted him to change one thing in his diet, which everyone knows what I'm going to say right now. They take out gluten. You got to reduce the amount of inflammation in the body. It's an inflammatory issue. Itis. That means inflammation. And of course, he hadn't had that discussion. But when I put it in those terms, he's like, oh, that makes sense. So he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
And I told him about the essential fatty acids, and I showed him like the layers of what happens. You have your skin, fatty acids, then your layer of muscle, then fatty acids, then another layer. And if you don't have the fatty acids, they stick together. And that is what creates the actual pain. So I was like, I got that. And then I got him on some turmeric, because really what essential fatty acids are, or fish oils, they're really technically called resolvins. And it's almost like they resolve the issue, and they resolve the inflammatory issue. They help facilitate inflammation. So got him on essential fatty acids, got him on some turmeric, got his feet and his ankles adjusted. And I know that sounds weird, but this all starts when there's a mechanical issue that puts abnormal loads into the foot. And there's over 30 movable joints in your foot. So we got them adjusted, and sure enough, 7 days later, like new. And I say that because sometimes you just kind of got to go outside your own box and logically think through things. So I promise you that his foot, so the way I'm going to put this is real. It's going to sound silly, but it's real. His foot was not lacking a boot.
This is true. Yeah.
It was lacking essential fatty acids.
Yeah.
So follow me. His foot was not lacking like the
steroid shot.
Steroid shot was not lacking steroid shot. Correct. He did have an inflammatory process, meaning his body couldn't with what he had. He wasn't handling the inflammation. That's where the turmeric did fit in. He couldn't move his foot good because it hurt too much. So he did have a mechanical issue. So sometimes we just got to step back and be like, man, maybe there's this a different way, different direction I might be headed to this. The very things he didn't want to do take time. He ended up in physical therapy for weeks and wear a silly boot around and then create more of an imbalance. So really now the bigger issue is what's going on with his hips, because he had the boot on, he had the, atrophy in his calf. But anyways, a good end result with it. Plantar fasciitis essentially is gone, that's not always the case in 1 week, I'll be honest with you, but in this scenario it was. And now he's kind of wide open, which is cool. Now he's like asking questions. What else can I do? I'm 45. Like, how do I test my testosterone? And just those questions. Now that we've kind of a little trust and a little bit of maybe there's some other things here that are pretty cool as well. And he found out that it's not that difficult, and etc. So all right.
His wife is stoked.
Yes, I haven't seen her yet. But I know she's gonna be like,
She's like, I've been trying to get him here for 10 years.
Yes. All right. One more clinical insight. And again,
okay, before that clinical insight, for your last clinical insight, we've got a comment here, or a suggestion for her. She could be your dog walker. That's a great job for her.
Yes, that's a good one right there.
Female. There we go.
That's a great point right there. I like that.
It was a good suggestion. All right, next clinical insight.
And then like her and 4 others. And then
I know.
All right. So the next one's kind of funny, and because it is kind of real, the conversation that came around this 41-year-old male who's trying to navigate what is the best alcohol he should be drinking.
Okay.
All right. And you know what? This is a question that comes up often, Dr. Bart. What alcohol should I be drinking? And this is the kind of conversation that goes. So this particular one, he says, well, my other doctor tells me that I should drink tequila and vodka, I don't know, maybe potato vodka. I don't know. He said some kind of vodka, and just either drink it with like soda water or lime or something like that. And stay away from beer and stay away from wine, and I'll be good because those have more calories. Well, maybe in theory, the idea that those have a little bit more calories, sure, but like some of those beers have like 10 calories. So the point being that is a very, very, very bad strategy to shift your alcohol and think you're going to get a different outcome. If you're drinking, you're not going to have a good outcome. That's the simple answer. That's it in a nutshell. If you're drinking and you think that I'm going to drink the right thing so I gain less weight, really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. As much as everyone's going to want to argue with me, but doesn't wine have more, blah, blah, blah than hard alcohol? Yep. Yes, it may have more calories, but it doesn't do as much damage to the liver. And so when we drink hard alcohol, your body, there's a reason it's called hard alcohol. There's more alcohol in it. Yeah. And that means the liver is going to work harder, which means you're going to sleep less. And we only lose weight when we sleep. You're not going to be in REM. So you're going to disrupt the whole system. So in this particular situation, he was looking to switching from, I'm just going to read my notes here, switching from beer and wine to tequila, and asked if that would help. So alcohol in my conversation, he's a good guy. Like he lets me call him out. And I literally said, this is one of those silly answers. You already know what I'm going to say. Sleeping, if you drink alcohol, you're going to inhibit sleep. You're also going to interfere with the detox pathway. So the detox pathway does not care how many calories it is. It only cares about the alcohol. Mm-hmm. So for everyone who's like, no, my doctor, and I watched this podcast and all this kind of stuff, and said, well, it's definitely beer has more calories, and therefore I should drink tequila. No. What inhibits the weight loss with alcohol is not the caloric intake, it's the detox pathway. So in a nutshell, you're doing more harm. No, I'm not going to say that. I'm saying no matter what, if you are drinking alcohol, in those moments, you have to give up this goal or strategy of losing weight, because those two, they don't go together. It's like fire and water. Like they don't blend. And you have to kind of surrender to that. And the other part of it is, Karen, that when we drink, we lower our expectations. That is the other thing that cracks me up when people go, well, I'll have less calories. I'm like, but you're eating at the end of the night. Everybody, nobody.
Have a pizza after tequila, and you have a pizza after beer.
So
there's a pizza there. You don't say after tequila, I'm going to have a salad. And then after beer, I'm going to have a pizza.
Yes, precisely. So there's no weight loss strategy that includes alcohol. And that's for people out there that it's important for them to lose weight. And I say that because I know there are some doctors, and I think it's just because I don't know why, actually. I don't know why they say it, because there's no validation. And maybe just because they like to drink or whatever. But if it comes to weight loss and your clients are asking you, doc, do you think it's okay? Good strategy. Every now and then, maybe 2-3 nights a week, I have a glass or just one glass of wine or something. No, it's not. It's gonna absolutely inhibit your weight loss goals. All right. So those are my clinical insights. And again, I know they're a little on the funny side, but they're real. Those are real conversations I get to have in my clinic every day.
They are. And I bet he didn't like your answer to that one then, did he?
I've been working with him long enough. This is just tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Like in this particular scenario, he knows it. He knows he is straightforward with me with his drinking and his, so, and I appreciate it. And most of my people are. No one tries to hide anything. They don't say, well, I'm not drinking. He'll tell me, like, I have company in town. He's a very social drinker with his businesses and stuff. And as a result of it, and he said, man, I'm going to get 2 nights off this week. And the other 5, I'm drinking.
Wow.
And then he'll be like, doc, so you're telling me it's not better if I drink the tequila? Whatever you want me to say, cool, pretend I said it, but no, it's not.
Maybe drink slower, more water.
So so we talked about all those strategies, and to my point actually says, I start off with like half and half, not drinking as much. He's like, but after a couple, I just go full tilt. I just go all in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So those are my clinical insights for the day.
Okay. Awesome. Love it. Well, we've had a bunch of questions sent in. Shall we get started with those?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Okay. What have we got here? Number 1, what's the best way to reduce inflammation?
Inflammation is kind of a
question, but yeah,
it really is. That's a broad, but I'll take it from both directions. So my athletes can have a lot of inflammation. So in kind of the conversation I just said there for a moment ago about the plantar fasciitis, if we have an inflammatory process going on, 2 things we got to have. It would certainly serve us to have. 1, a good fish oil, what we call essential fatty acid. That's a resolvent that helps you facilitate the inflammatory process. So that I'm going to talk about the things to take first, and then I'll talk about the things to do. I also use a really good, probably what I think is the absolute best turmeric source really on the market. And I've had a lot, and they're all good. Don't get me wrong. They're all good. There's no bad turmeric. We use one that has fenugreek, and it's absolutely phenomenal in how much your body can absorb of it and help facilitate and downregulate inflammation, especially excessive, like cytokines and stuff like that. So those 2 particular things, absolutely phenomenal, especially if you have musculoskeletal, exercise induced, sitting too long induced, pain induced type inflammatory stuff. With that aside, so those are the things that you take. Diet. If you want to look for one big thing, get gluten, get all of the grains out of your life, out of your diet, out of your body. They will always produce inflammation. After inflammation comes degeneration. That can show up in arthritis, that can show up as pain, brain fog, all of that. So if you want to clean up inflammation, certainly, get some things like good essential fatty acids, turmeric. The next thing is sleep. Like, sleep is a significant reducer, because that's the heal time. So really it's the amount of time, like if you have a tremendous amount of effort that you're putting into your body and a lot of tissue breakdown, whether it be through diet or through exercise, if you sleep, you can do a lot of regeneration. So good sleepers typically have less pain, which is pretty cool. So without going too much deeper there, the things you take, some fish oils, take some turmeric, get some extra sleep, clean your diet up.
Yeah. Nice. I think people don't think about their diet as much they do, but they don't realize that specific foods might be causing their pain.
Yeah, not I don't think nearly enough. And I think we're starting to have more and more conversation about that, and more people are experimenting even on their own. And I think we just have to go a little bit deeper. And for the practitioners to listen, keep, encouraging and enhancing people to do their elimination diets so they can start to have that personal awareness themselves. When because that's probably the most motivating factor. Pain is a motivator.
Yeah. But you have to take it out for a while. Like some of these things, like how long is it going to take you to, like, you're getting your turmeric, your fish oil, you're kind of working on your sleep and you're taking out some of these things.
If let's just say that someone's experiencing like the general, like we'll say like achy knees and like signs of arthritis to the body, like osteoarthritis and stuff like that, they will literally change the way that the body feels within 30 days.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds like a long time, but listen, think about what we've been doing to your body and how long.
Yeah.
Like in order to get something like arthritis, that takes years, degeneration for years before you get the inflammatory and pain markers. So, but if 30 days of just cleaning it up, we're not talking about going to jail or anything. We're just talking about cleaning up your diet. And in that period of time, we often will see down regulation pain. And then you can like plow it all back in one day, like have a gluten party, wake up with donuts, have some French fries, eat a pizza, drink a case of beer, and then see how you feel the next day.
Yeah, you don't feel that good.
Yeah.
You only say that because for me, I guess I kept hearing it until I actually did an elimination. Like I used to just get so much back pain, and until I actually did an elimination diet, I was like, oh, even the yoga helped it, and some things helped it, and I'd go to chiropractic and it helped it, but actually not as much as the food.
Karen, with
not as much.
Yeah, and here's why. So I'll give you an analogy that I'll often share in clinics. So I give the analogy of like burning a campfire. And you got all this stuff going on, and when it's raging, it's like full-blown inflammation and pain, and then you stop putting sticks on it. Okay, that's when you start cleaning up your diet. And you've done it for like, all right, for the next 2 hours, you're not going to put any sticks on it. It's starting to burn down. It's calming down. It's not quite as intense, not quite on fire, but underneath there, even though it's almost done, hours later, there's still those little red coals. And then all of a sudden you come by and you just dump a little bit of kindling back on it. Maybe you just put a little gluten back into your diet. Boom, starts all over again. Fire starts right back up. And that's the challenge most people have with their diet. They don't give it a long enough time. I've said it 1,000 times on this show. Gluten's like being pregnant. Like just like you are right now. Get it out of your diet, because specifically grains have the ability, gluten being the biggest offender, have the ability to create an inflammatory process. That would be like having that coal there that's still burning for 30 to 100 days later. So that's why you got to go cold turkey. Now, dairy is a little bit different, and other inflammatory, foods are a little bit different, but that one's a big one. All right, let's keep rolling here. I know we got a bunch.
Okay. Number 2, I'm having trouble losing weight. Actually, I'm gaining weight, even though eating mostly clean. Most days I practice OMAD and eat around 8 p.m. Some days I fast just 14 hours and eat 2 meals, but any tips would be great. I need to get this weight off.
Okay, a couple of things in case people don't know. So OMAD stands for 1 meal a day. Yeah. So for some people, this is a phenomenal strategy. For some, if you are out there and you're doing 1 meal a day, make sure it's because you're not trying to starve yourself. It's more of a lifestyle strategy. And it really should have nothing to do with weight gain or weight loss, doing 1 meal a day.
Obviously, for this person, they're trying to lose weight.
It is. And that's why I say that, because that is really a convenience. That is a strategy for enhancing microbiome, telomere function, microbiome, all that stuff. I know I mentioned that twice there. So that's a really good strategy, and it's very effective. And you also have to have a very thoughtful strategy with your supplementation, because you will end up deficient in certain things. So there are some people out there that are really advocates of 1 meal a day, and it's for some people, it's not for everyone. And it's not something that I use clinically as an advocacy for weight loss. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Okay.
And the reason being, Karen, is after doing it, and yes, you might get some results for weight loss in the first like 30 days, but then after that, your body essentially will probably act as if it's in starvation mode and actually start to hold more. And that's probably what's going on with this individual. So the second part of this, which is probably the bigger part, well, it's probably equal. So that goes for people to 1 meal a day. That would be also the equivalent of going for these really long fasts and then having a really big meal.
Yeah.
And that happens to be near the tail end of the day. The bigger one, I think you said that they eat around 8 p.m.
Yeah, around 8 p.m. at night is their 1 meal.
Yeah, that's trouble. If you're eating that late, this is for any one of us, especially a bigger meal,
Yeah, after you fast all day, I'm sure that meal is
big,
yeah.
right? It's robust. So then we eat at 8 o'clock. What time we logistically going to bed? It's one thing if you have a meal and you go out for a walk with your dogs or something like that, and you're somehow creating increased metabolic activity, but that's not likely. So in a scenario like this, even if a good, clean, healthy meal is happening later at night, most likely you're storing it as excess energy simply because your body doesn't need energy to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's, and I see that more and more, Karen. So in a scenario like this, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say there's something to do with their lifestyle, their work, or something like that, that requires them, or they just can't get to eat until the end of the day. I would somehow plan to have the bulk of that meal, even if it had to be as early as 4 p.m., have it way, way early, and then snack later. Have a snack at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Something's certainly not going to fill up your belly, but maybe satiate you a little bit and kind of get you through the tail end of it. So that's a lifestyle change. That's part of the epigenetics. That's a big part of that.
Yeah, going to bed slightly hungry isn't a bad thing anyway, is it?
No, it's really not. I do have some people that the nature of their business and the professions that they're in, they work until 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Okay.
Almost like, so I try to help them navigate. All right, let's try to get the bulk of that food in there before the sun goes down, before, the different hormones are released by the body, because at that point you're going to store them. You're going to store them in the adipose tissue because you simply don't need them. So the body will store what's not being readily used, and it isn't used for repair or regeneration or for current, needed energy on the spot, will be stored in a fat tissue. So, so eating late at night's never really a good strategy. So, and then, the other part there, the one meal a day. If you're doing one meal a day, make sure you are doing this for health purposes, not for weight loss purposes.
And then even should you do that like every day for like months and months on end? Or do you need to mix it up?
I would encourage you to mix it up. The metabolic flexibility to me is always still is the most important. Our ancestral eating shows us that we never intentionally would fast.
Right?
I bet. Right? If there was food,
you never would. I mean, we've gotten to this situation where we've got abundance of everything, but yeah. You wouldn't have thought traditionally anybody would be like, oh, I'd love to go without food today.
Now, I'll tell you, there are certain days that I kind of practice OMAD, like today, like today and my work days. And simply because when I do eat, remember the greatest source of energy your body will ever exert is not exercise. It's going to be digestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully we put only good things in there, so we're not beating the body down as well. So when I am working, I either will do like juices or herbal tonics, but I rarely eat or consume food simply because I need my brain to function at a high level. And it's taken me a little while to practice that way. So there's a couple of times, which is only a couple of days a week, that I'll practice that strategy. But trust me, the moment I get home, I'm eating. Yeah. I'm not waiting for a clock or anything like that. And then, so this is a good scenario that's very similar to that individual. So I eat, but not too much because I got to be sharp here this evening. And then when I get done, it's going to be late and I'm still going to snack again, but just not a full meal. Hopefully, like most of it, it's on the front end of that. So we got to be careful with that extended type stuff. I'm a huge fan of intermittent fasting. There are, Karen, listen, there's for every extreme out there, there's someone out there having success with it. Right. So, and I've talked to and listened to and all that stuff with some people that really profess by the OMAD. I don't think it's for everybody, and especially my ladies out there. I think you have to be super careful with it, especially during your cycle. You should not be putting any more stress on your body, and you can disrupt some function. You can get your thyroid a little stressed out. There are some things, they're all fixable, but when you hear people say, well, too much fasting, that really too much fasting is too much, then we can interrupt some of the endocrine pathways. So
this person, we want to try and eat a little bit earlier, maybe add in a couple of meals or mix it up. So a couple of days a week, at least they're eating a little more during the day.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if I had this person, we were, doing, a consult, I would actually push them to become metabolic flexible, to create this flexibility with their metabolism. So this individual, because they've been doing the OMAD, I would say, all right, that's cool. Now let's see you eat every 12 hours. I know that sounds extreme, but I would want to see their body handle that, where food shouldn't be a disease for us. It shouldn't be, it shouldn't throw us off that much. So I would flex it back into the diet so it could ebb and flow. And maybe they'd find a whole different types of results. Maybe if they just did OMAD 1 day a week, and that could be really good again for the microbiome. It could be good for some other inflammatory type stuff, not every day, especially not if it requires eating late every day. But yes, flexing it a little bit. Again, I think women probably do best when it comes to fasting, living in a healthy place between 14 and 16 hours naturally. That seems to be a really good fit. Men could usually go a little bit farther, 16, 18 hours. And when we're talking about those timeframes, there's really no huge benefit of getting or forcing yourself that extra 1, 2, 3 hours. It's really our mind and our ego that kind of steps into that, being like, well, if 16 was good, 21 must be awesome.
Yeah.
And for the system, it's not necessarily true.
Okay, cool. All right, number 3 we've got here. I have a lot of full body discomfort and brain fog. My doctor says it's because I'm dehydrated, but I feel like it's more than that. Is there some tests I should run?
Well, I'll start with first kudos to the doctor talking about being dehydrated, because the truth is,
a doctor that mentions that is awesome.
Yeah, I love it. And can you have those symptoms, brain fog and overall body discomfort for being dehydrated? Of course, the answer is absolutely. Karen, I see this clinically all the time. Yeah. Specifically, if the dehydration ends up as a result of the dehydration, you end up with limited electrolytes. So this is what's really important. So we are electrical units, right? So when someone passes out in the sun, their power turned off. They ran out of electricity. That's what happened. They ran out of electrolytes. So that's when people say you need electrolytes, and oftentimes you'll get some in true water, but you get better, more in like, fruits even, but other things that have electrolytes, and, sodium and potassium, magnesium, chloride, those types of things. So if you are dehydrated, can you get brain fog? Absolutely you can. If you're dehydrated, can you have overall aches and pains? Certainly. Most arthritis cases, I have to make a point of it. Like, it is part of the protocol, a water consumption calendar. And this is, you would think this is fundamental, but it's usually not. Most arthritis, especially osteoarthritis, we consider that a foodborne disease, and we're not facilitating the flushing out of the joints, which is water. So can we have those two things go together? Absolutely. In terms of running tests, when I hear that, sometimes, Karen, I think that maybe they want a magic pill and not an action to take. So I would say no. In this particular scenario, if you have brain fog and overall body discomfort, 1, get super hydrated. Let's roll with what your doctor said. 2nd, here we go again, clean up your diet. Get rid of the gluten, first of all, because that's a brain fog, that's a brain fog maker right there. Overall body discomfort, we discussed that as well. Any food that you bring into your body that the body doesn't recognize is from God's garden, if it doesn't come from root, plant, tree, walk in the garden, swim in the sea, then we have a good chance that the body's going to act as if it's a toxin, which means an immune response to it. So then we start to create these cytokines, we start to release histamine, and we puts our body in pain. So let's clean up the diet, get better hydrated, get you moving like the lady earlier, from the clinical side, before we start to spend money on tests.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if that individual came back and said, no, listen, doc, I'm sucking back a gallon of water a day, I'm clean living, on God's garden only, and I'm still having brain fog and still, all right, let's run some tests. And then I would say, all right, in those scenarios, there's just a battery test we'd probably run, find out, do we have heavy metals or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Okay. But do those things first, because then we're actually getting proper results from our lab tests.
Correct. In that scenario, those symptoms, and probably the way that question was presented, I would say, put the work in first, because if we get labs back, there's going to be more work, not less.
Yeah. Right.
Always, right? Like that's, we're always going to have more things to do, not less.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we've got another question here. My health continues to get worse. I have low energy, fibromyalgia, brain fog, bloating. Where do I start? It's so overwhelming. I mean, sounds overwhelming.
Yeah. No, side note, you see how many times we run into brain fog?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Right?
huge.
But
It's
it's yeah.
I was actually having conversation this past weekend. I went to visit some family and we're talking, and they were asking, like, what's the biggest things you see? And no doubt people would pay, $1 million for just the magic energy pill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's tired.
Everyone's tired. But secondary to that, and that used to be like the primary thing. Yeah. Brain fog is right up there.
Yeah. Wow.
Brain fog is right up there. And
yeah.
then the people
And maybe that's so people just used to put up with it more, and maybe more people are realizing that it's not okay.
Yeah.
Or do you think just more things are affecting us?
I think more things are affecting us.
Okay.
I really do. And I say that sadly because it makes it harder and harder for us as clinicians to identify. So what that really means, Karen, is that I think what I'm seeing now in clinic, and we'll probably do a deeper dive on this, there's so much leaky gut, and we also have leaky brain.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is for the same exact reasons. There's a blood-brain barrier, just like there's a gut barrier, and things are breaking through it. And now we're starting to see evidence that the same things happening to our brain. So getting our bodies clean. So if everyone says, is there a super supplement for that? What we always talk about, the essential fatty acids, the good fats for the body. Yeah, it's cleaning things up. We got to get the junk out of the body, down-regulate the inflammatory markers, and then we start from there and can heal this up as well. So,
okay, but for this person at the moment, they're overwhelmed by all these different symptoms.
Overwhelmed. So yeah, where do I start? So I would say this, in that situation, for anyone out there that's overwhelmed, and I will tell you, being uncomfortable, whether it's brain fog or fibromyalgia or just pain in your life, gut issues, bloating, any of that stuff, when we're in that scenario, rarely can we actually navigate it by ourselves.
Yeah,
100%. I don't care who you are. I don't care. Listen, I see doctors. I have doctors as clients. They know what to do, but they too I have coaches. And that's an important thing. So to continue to understand. So there are so many good, skilled men and women out here right now that most of them, the reason they're good and skilled is because they've been there. That's the reason most of them, because everything that you're dealing with, they probably had to experience. No different than myself. One way or another, they've had these health challenges and now they're helping other people with them. So allow yourself to get some help, develop a strategy. And so you can just kind of follow the lead. And oftentimes many of us need, it's like when we go to work out, go to a class, you know what to do, but you're not going to do it. So you go to class, right?
Way better if you can go to a class.
No doubt.
Or have somebody show you.
Yes. And this is going to be the same thing when you have a health coach, or like that would be another thing. You could get a health coach. There's a more accountability, et cetera. So, just hear me when I say this. If you're out there, you're struggling, and every time you go to Google and see a new podcast, it just continues to be absolutely overwhelming. Understandable. Pick one of those individuals and reach out to them and see if they will help you navigate how to get back to health. If I was to give a simple answer, like where do I start? And if I was just going to give a broad shotgun approach, gut health.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would say. I wouldn't say try to navigate that by yourself. I either go back and listen to our podcast. We did the 4 R's. If you want to do things you're like, I need to do this by myself, go listen to that. We mapped it out really well there. But gut health is where I start.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. We have another question here. What is the best overall lab test I should run? I know that many standard tests are incomplete.
All right.
Is there overall lab?
There's no one overall lab, Karen. And yes, a lot of lab tests out there are incomplete. So I love that this person is paying attention, because there are several labs. So for example, like a thyroid panel, traditionally, they don't run enough to really be able to navigate a good strategy. They can say, well, it's bad or good. They might not have. I was just reviewing a thyroid panel last week with someone, and they asked me, said, Doc, why, I get lab work every year. Why do they take so much blood this time? And I told them, listen, just your thyroid panel, I run 9 markers plus vitamin D. So there's really 10 markers. So we can literally know, is it low T4? Is it low T3? Is there a conversion issue? Do you have an iodine issue? Is this a stress issue? Because wouldn't you want to know instead of just like taking this broad, well, it's low, let's make it high approach. So with that being said, I'm going to take this in a different direction, talk about like a panel. If someone's looking for, I'm gonna assume this person wants to know, like, what do I need to do if I really want to level up and become superhuman? So there is approximately 5 tests that I bring people that do my coaching program, my Health Edge program. One of them, I'll start with one that's kind of fascinating. It's called a telomere test.
Okay.
And a telomere test is a genetic test. It's done by blood. It's one simple marker. And really, Karen, in this one, they're measuring the length of your telomeres. Your telomeres are the end caps of the chromosomes. And the longer they are, basically it tells you how much wear and tear your body's been under at this point in your life. So you get to learn your biological age, which is pretty
it's
cool.
like a longevity marker, really.
It is. It really is.
How do yours look, Bart?
Yes. I ran mine several years ago. Right? So here, that's fair. I was 2 years older than my current. Yeah. So I'm running again this year. So, and I'll share those results when I get it there. So that's what's fascinating. And what's really fascinating is that
to get that insight though, right?
I have that insight. Yeah. And no doubt, because I'm competitive, you bet your ass a lot of the times that I'm thinking, what are all the strategies that get me there? Sugar, sleep, all of these things, Oura ring, everything talking about kindness, meditation, fasting, get, good healthy fats, everything we talk about is everything that would move swing the pendulum in the favor. So I'm hoping when I go back and test it this year that I'm at least my biological age and my chronological age, I'm hoping that my biological age is younger. Yeah. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. So I'm feeling pretty good about that one. So that's one test. And that's just kind of like an offset. Again, that's probably more than anything. It's just kind of like a cool test, very measurable. You run it maybe once every other year, once a year to see what direction you're going into. Yeah. We do a full comprehensive male or female panel. That's where you'd get all your hormones. That's where you get your thyroid panel, but also cardiovascular, also the diabetes marker. That's the insulin resistance. So ours is pretty comprehensive. So when you talk to your functional medicine doctors, these are the things you're looking for. Are they measuring things like insulin resistance? It has to be tested. At least every American is suspected to have some level of insulin resistance because we eat carbohydrates nonstop. It's the SAD diet, standard American diet. So all of those markers being in there, and there's probably over 50 different markers we run. We run the hormones, et cetera. Men, I run your PSA, which for prostate. We run all the homocysteine inflammatory markers. So that's one test, which is just a comprehensive male or female panel, and that's done via blood. Run a couple other good ones as well. When in the program, I run a neurotransmitter test. This is important. I don't hear about these guys talk about much, and these will be things like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, to find out how your neurotransmitters do. Ultimately, how we emote are going to come down to these guys, our emotions, things like anxiety and depression. This is where we need to go. And, because mental health is such, if it's not a big deal, it should be a big deal. Like in the world right now, we're seeing more challenges.
It's like a massive deal.
Yeah. And we're not looking, suffering. And we're not looking in the right places. All we need to, if we started looking at neurotransmitters, things like dopamine and serotonin, it would probably shock us, or maybe not. And the nice thing is, as a clinician, when we see that data, and now we have that test. So that's that's a saliva test. I'll also run an adrenal test.
Everybody kind of.
So we know where we are relative to our capacity to manage stress. It's huge, because if we don't, then we're going to have an immune function that's going to be defunct shortly after that. So those are some of the tests. I'm trying to think what else I run. An organic acid test. So that comes right there. Yeah, and the organic acid test is probably one of the gold standards in functional medicine. Not many practitioners, unless you're running it, don't really know how to utilize it well. It's like a foreign language, quite frankly, but it's fantastic in terms of we get more data when it comes to neurotransmitters, but we really get an inside look on everything from oxalates. We hear that all the time. like oxalates, eating too much Spanish, or, like spinach, or just things like that out there that tells us about the detox pathways. We also learn, this is why I mostly run it, is to find out if we have mold and funguses and bacteria. It's the absolute gold standard to know that thing. So put all those tests together: telomere test, comprehensive male panel or female panel. Make sure that we're running the organic acid test, know your neurotransmitters and your adrenal function. If they want to know the best test, you put that thing together, you'll know where you stand.
Yeah, amazing.
And I know that's a lot, so you don't have to run all those, but the other would be, the reason I can't answer that in any other way is because there's no one test that everybody needs. So
depends on your goal.
Yeah, it depends on. So I didn't even mention a food sensitivity test, and often I'll throw that in there. But again, my general rule on food sensitivities: you have to have a clean diet first. Most of the time, people coming to me don't come with the clean diet.
Yeah.
And then down the road, after at least 30 days of eating from God's garden, and then I'll consider running that food sensitivity test.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Love that. Okay, we've got time for one more quick question here. I have recently heard of berberine being effective to help with decreasing insulin resistance and supporting heart health and cholesterol levels. I have a strong history of heart disease in my family and wondering if this is something beneficial to incorporate in my daily routine.
Karen, this has become one of my new favorite herbs to use, especially when it comes to like cholesterol and just like this person mentioned, insulin resistance. A phenomenal herb, very, very effective. Clinically, I use this in fatty liver. I use this cholesterol issues, like I said. Anything to do with even metabolic disease, diabetes. Phenomenal herb. And the beauty is you don't need a high dose here. So as long as it's a good source, I've really become.
You use the berberine active?
Correct. It's called berberine active. That's standard. It's really through MediHerb.
MediHerb, yeah.
Yeah. And the dosing is usually just one of them twice a day. And I've probably only been using that herb for probably 3 or 4 years. And all of the cases with cholesterol, all of the cases with diabetes, all the cases with fatty liver have just getting better, easier. So it has become a mainstay of all of those protocols that I use now. So whoever sent that question in, good for you. Sounds like you're doing your homework. I love it. And the answer is absolutely, especially if there's a little history, right? So we want to make sure that we don't follow in those same footsteps. Doesn't mean you're going to, if you have some genetic pathways that could be expressed, just make sure you just get on a different path, get a different result.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Cool. Well, there were some awesome questions. We're right out of time. So what's going to be one action that listeners take to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
Old school, simple but classic. If you don't move, you lose it. So get active, whatever you're doing. So don't settle for mediocrity. Awesome. Don't settle for the mediocrity. So I know when I hear it, sometimes I hear people like, I move every day. Yeah, it's almost like a chore to them. Find out a creative way where you can keep moving. Ride a bike, get on the beach, do something, and then enhance it. If you're doing it really good, do it better. Like push yourself a little bit so you can keep raising that bar. Because as human beings, we're supposed to be pushed a little bit. That's our magic. That's what makes us superhuman, because we have so much potential. And oftentimes we don't give ourselves enough credit to really express it. So move it so you don't lose it.
Love that. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back same time, same place next week for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
And of course, appreciate everyone for being here. Continue to do your thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading the love. You never know how well you may or how much impact you might have on someone by just hitting that share button. So keep doing your thing. Of course, continue to level up. Continue to take deliberate action for your mind, your body over wellness. Y'all be awesome.